There we go. Recording in progress.
So how would you like to conduct this meeting, Leah? What do you think we should do?
Well, I mean, some of the questions that Lou had put forward were very specific to Zoom and webinars and that sort of thing. So maybe we could cover those. And then John, I also saw your questions that you had put out. So maybe we could head to those afterwards. I mean, it won't take long to go through what Lou had put forward.
But what do you recommend that we do when we start up in October? Actually, September, it looks like we're going to have the President, Kevin Hall, give us a talk on the 25th of September.
Yeah.
So I'm working with his office to get details on that. And I presume that office will play some role in advertising and organizing the presentation. And I need to find out what they're going to do. But after that, we start our regular series in October, as I think I mentioned. And so I was wondering if you might just step us through how you saw us doing that. So the first one will be October the 2nd, Saturday morning, 10 a.m., hybrid presentation. Hopefully we're going to be able to do it in person. Could you take us from that point on, Leah?
Yeah. So for a hybrid presentation, so regularly for your virtual presentations, because the Elder Academy, you still produced sessions throughout the pandemic, correct? You were,
Correct.
Yeah, you were, that's what I thought you were still doing. About how many people were you having joining you?
Up to about 75 registered.
Okay, that's a good number. Okay. So when you go back hybrid, of course, that's all going to make the difference as to whether or not people are feeling comfortable with joining, but it should be now, let me just back up a little bit here. I have sent, because I've got a major event that I'm doing in October, just a week later, actually. It's the Lafayette Health Awareness Forum, and we've got musicians and panelists, some who will be with us in person, some who won't. So I've already got an email out to audiovisual just to talk them through, like, this is what I've got planned for a variety of laptops and microphones. Is this possible? So when I hear back from them, I can definitely share that with you. But if you're doing in person and online, you can do it as a meeting. There's no real reason why you can't, since you've been doing all of your Elder Academies already as a meeting. I can't, if you've got people who are comfortable joining that as a meeting, there's no real reason why you can't just continue doing that. The function of a webinar and a meeting are essentially the same. The only difference is really for webinars, you don't have a breakout room option if you ever wanted that during a meeting where you say, okay, you 10 people are going to talk about this topic with this facilitator, and you 10 people are going to talk about this topic with that facilitator. With a webinar, you basically have a silent audience. You don't get the option to be able to have them speak up. During the Elder Academy meetings that you've been doing so far, how have people been interacting? Do they raise their hand to ask a question, or does the question go in a chat box?
David, would you like to answer
that? Yeah, we've kind of used both in a way. Like typically when the person's presenting, we discourage people from interrupting.
Yeah.
But we encourage them to use the chat box. And then we have somebody monitor the chat box.
Yep.
The way we've done it, if there seems to be a point of clarification needed at that point, then the moderator or the person that's coordinating will interject and ask the speaker if they could expand or explain that or whatever. And then we've typically had a break halfway through, and then we've looked at the chat line. We've invited people then to switch back on the audio and video, and if they wanted to, they could come on and ask the question directly. Few seem to have done that at the break. but we've also offered the same option at the end of the presentation when we've opened it up to questions. So we've actually used a combination of the chat line where the person who's coordinating will ask the questions, usually in the order in which they appear. And we ask the person if they want to come in, or would they like us to ask the question on their behalf. And some opt to come in and some continue to allow the moderator to do that. So we've, that's the way we've handled it. And it's kind of worked pretty well.
Yeah.
With 75 people, if everybody is wanting to kind of come in all at once, then it's a bit, I would assume, it's never happened to us, but it would appear to be potentially chaotic.
It could be. I mean, you can always set it up so that people can only speak if the host, whoever it is that set up the Zoom meeting, they have to unmute somebody before they're allowed to say something. Because with a webinar, your audience, you can't see them or hear them at all. And, for our events, that works quite well because we've got so many people. For some of them, we had, for our Lafayette last year, we had about 600 people. It wouldn't have worked as a meeting. But I see Elder Academy as kind of a community. And a lot of people who are involved with Elder Academy, I'm thinking, given the room that I was in a couple of times when I attended, they're retirees. It's kind of nice for them to get to see each other, maybe. So I don't know if for your group, the fact that A, you have to pay for webinar, and B, you wouldn't get to see the audience, there'd be absolutely no interaction whatsoever. I don't know that that's really a better option for you.
I agree.
Let me put it this way. I cannot think of anything that a webinar provides that you wouldn't get from a meeting in the same way. I think you're doing really well with the meetings the way that you're already doing them. So webinars.
Really the only advantage of a webinar is if you have a large number of people.
Yes, if you're going to be doing something like, say, like the Robert Bateman one, for instance, that was more than 300 people who attended that one. For that, yeah, you might want to do it as a webinar instead, but I would see that as more like as a one-off rather than what you're doing for this series. Because certainly for the meetings, you can keep people muted unless you invite them to unmute, in which case, that's when people can, raise their hand and that sort of thing. And
so what's the main difference then between what we've been doing and a webinar? Is it just that the webinar allows you to do breakout groups and have discussions?
No,
the meetings allow you the breakout groups. The webinar basically keeps it so that your audience is not on video and not audio. So you can't have people, you're not likely to have this anyway, but you can't have somebody, flash the camera or something.
I don't think we want that. And I don't anticipate a situation if we're so successful that we have over 150 people, then yeah, we could revisit it. But I think my preference would be to stay with what we're doing, which gives us all the functionality of the meeting and the closed captioning and the recording and all those things can be managed in exactly what we're doing now.
Exactly. Now I haven't
It almost strikes me that, I've got the names backwards almost. Like, to me, a webinar allows you to do seminar kinds of activities, right? But it does not appear to be the case.
Not really. Yeah, not really. And, the nice thing about having it as a meeting is it's a lot more straightforward to put together. A webinar, there's a lot more pieces to put together. Like my how to set up a webinar is probably about 3 pages long. It's fairly extensive. There's a lot more to it. So I would say it's one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know
I think it's an easy decision. And so I think what we should do is now discuss how the meetings, if we're all agreed. First of all, are we all agreed that we should stay with the meetings format rather than using the webinar? Richard?
I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I'm quite happy. Yeah.
Right. And David?
No, it's worked well. I mean, one thing I'd like to ask you, and before it gets kind of lost, is you're talking about hosting a fairly big event, and you're talking about having kind of a music or an orchestral group, or I mean, I find the problem with the Zoom right now is that, only one person can participate at a time. The idea of Zoom is it zooms in on the person that's making the loudest noise. Right? Now,
Well, it depends on how you set your screen up. So are you talking like as a user hearing this that, you only see say the person who's speaking kind of thing?
I'm just, well, it's nothing to do with this in a way, but in terms of people singing together.
Right.
Right. Could you have 4 or 5 people or a choir singing on one camera? And would that come out as a collective, or would it tend to be fragmented when you just hear the loudest voice?
Well, that's actually a question that I've got for audio visual, because for the quartet, what I want to be able to do is put a microphone in the middle of them, because they kind of play in a circle, as much as a circle, a square, I guess, given that it's 4. But yeah, I mean, that is the consideration, right? You need to be able to pull in from everybody. Last year, they pre-recorded their performance, which created a whole different set of issues with Zoom that I had to figure out.
It's massive. I mean, we did that with the choir. Everybody has to record their individual part, and then it has to be sent in, and somebody has to coordinate or collate it. And anyway, that's nothing that we're going to be doing. I'm just kind of curious because of other groups in which I'm involved with, and we use Zoom. And right now, that seems to me to have been the big limitation, right?
Yeah. And everybody's got trying to do something like that live, even though you're all playing as it sounds like it should be, not everybody's connection is going to be as fast as the next one. So you end up with, and with music, even a quarter of a second of a lag is enough to throw everybody off. Absolutely. So yeah.
Sorry, John, I just, that was just, when you mentioned that, I was kind of curious of how that may go. So if you'd let me know what the outcome of that is, Leah, I will. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to.
Oh, it may be that we have a series.
But we have tried in the past. We've tried to have a musical part, and unfortunately, we had a pianist and a singer, and it was beautiful, but it was on the German something or other. Can't even remember the name of it, but it was very narrow. So we had like 12 people. That was it. But we didn't do it on Zoom. It was done in the studio at UVic.
So ideally, if you're doing this as a hybrid, you would have one person presenting, and if they were using PowerPoint slides, you would want to have somebody else. Sanjeet, this is usually your role, right? You tend to be the person who's masterminding the Elder Academy events behind the scenes. Is that right?
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Sanjit sets it up, but then he disappears. So it's either John or I that kind of run it. And, we have been using SlideShare or Share Slide a lot.
Yep.
Or sharing information, particularly things like slides.
Right. Sorry, do you mean share screen on?
Yeah, screen, sorry.
Share screen. Yeah. Because the only thing that you would want to be able to, that you'd need to take into account is that if you're doing this as a hybrid, you would need to have somebody as the host of the Zoom with a laptop acting as host, and then your presenter would need to share their screen with the host, as well as be linked into the projection screen of the venue so that the people who are there in person would be able to see. So it's basically just one more step of a link to make sure that everybody's seeing the same thing at the same time so that the audio is making sense.
That's the question I had, because we do assign the presenter as a co-host.
Yes, okay.
We make them a co-host, and the moderator or the coordinator is the host.
Yes.
Right, David?
Yeah.
And the presenter is assigned a co-host.
Right.
And when the introduction takes place by the coordinator, they turn it over to the co-host presenter.
Yes.
And he then goes to a screen share and conducts the presentation.
Right.
And what I'm concerned about is if we have some people in an audience setting, in a theater setting, that they get to see the presenter, that the Zoom presentation itself gets projected onto the screens in the theater.
Yes.
And similarly, well, I'm presuming that the people who are coming in on Zoom will see the presenter and the screen share.
Yes.
But I'm trying to envisage a point where perhaps the screen share is over and now the presenter comes on. If the presenter's at the podium, is in there in person and not coming in on Zoom,
yep,
then the camera has to be set up such that he or she stays within the radius of view.
Exactly. So you'd probably need to have some sort of a stool or a stand on the desk so that their camera is, you know, at a good height for them to be able to be still visible to the audience. And of course, to remember to once in a while look into the camera as well as the audience who's there in person.
And the audio pickup of the speaker.
Yeah.
You know, he can't just sort of say, well, I'm presenting in a theater and I'm going to wander around and so on, because when you do that, you go out of the field of view. You go
exactly.
Out of the sound pickup of the camera.
Yes.
Of the microphone.
Yes, exactly. So they'll need to keep themselves in a fairly stationary way. One way of them doing that would be to plug them in with a pair of earbuds so that they're connected, so that their microphone for the Zoom is right there. And then you're literally wiring them to their laptop and then they wouldn't be able to wander, because I know I've had presenters as well. They're like, well, I need to be able to pace. And I'm like, you cannot pace. I'm sorry, but you cannot.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So wiring them in is a great way of just kind of keeping them right where they need to be.
So we need to ask the question, who enables that facility? How do we make that happen?
I mean, John, I've had quite a lot of experience now with doing Zoom and doing like hybrid presentations through Cordova Bay 55 plus.
Right.
You know, where we've actually had people in the center, like 4 or 5 people, including, you know, somebody to play the piano, somebody that's doing the, you know, the emceeing and things like that. And we've actually had people at home who are taking part as a presenter. And I've been able to kind of contact them and spotlight them and bring them in, and then flip from, you know, basically share screen to live, back to share screen, and so on. And, you know, it is very doable. Now, the other thing we've had too is we've had, you know, a couple of cameras. We've had 2 cameras, we've had 3 mics. All right, so when we switch from one to the other, we've had external mics. So my sense, Leah, is that we could, you know, basically at the, you know, for the live performance and the people in the theater, we can have them hooked up to the projector system within the room.
Yes.
By going into, you know, either the HDMI or the VGA cable, and then that will operate their computer within the room.
That's right.
And then, you know, the other thing would be then to actually have them go to slide share or screen share, which would then project their image to the people who are zooming in.
That's right.
And then we could, John, have an external mic, and you can buy them fairly cheaply from Samsung and things like that, and they can pick up, you know, a sound from a variety of areas. Now, you know, you have to have a kind of a central computer to control all that, right? You know,
yeah, it depends on the room. What is there a specific room that you tend to use on campus?
Is it the Turpin building?
Yeah, we've been using that one.
About 3 different sized theater rooms in there.
Yeah.
And we've used all 3 of them, I think, for different presentations. But the one that I'm figuring we probably will book when the time comes is the one that has a capacity of about 85. And I'm presuming there may be some social distancing, which might reduce that number. But not everybody's going to be coming in person. So if typically we get, say, under 100 people participating in one form or another, I would think that that sized room would be sufficient. So there is a room there in the Turpin building there. Is it the Turpin building?
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, it's the David Turpin
Yeah.
building. Yeah. It's in the basement area. There's
I know
two or
the
three lecture halls
I know
Right.
the ones.
at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And that's-
presuming that that's where we will be asking for a room when the time comes.
Yeah. And the nice thing about those rooms, I mean, that's a fairly new building, so the tech in there is quite good. And you should have no issues whatsoever linking into it. You can always request a time to be able to go in ahead of time as well, just to test out everything and make sure that it's going to run the way that you want it to run once you're actually in there. They'll book them for like half an hour sort of thing whenever they've got a spare slot.
I think I would like to suggest that depending on what Kevin Hall, the president, is going to do in September, but in that last week of September, and presumably before his presentation, that we have an orientation day, or half day, and get that room and play act through the whole idea of running a presentation.
Yep.
What do you think of that, Sanjit? Is that something that you'd want to participate in? And David, how would we set that up?
Yeah, I mean, who is the contact person, Leah, at UVic that would be able to, we could work within the room and say, this is what we want to do, and he could say, this is how you set it up. Is there something that we could go to there?
Yeah, there is. I'm not sure if you guys can't book it, I certainly can. It would just be some time with somebody in audio visual, so they just would send over any one of their texts just to be sure that it's going to run the way that you want it to. So yeah, very straightforward. Bookings, I've been talking to them about a couple of events that I'm wanting to run in October, and they said that they should have the bookings open by mid-August. So when I get the heads up that, okay, you're good to go, because they said they'd let me know as soon as it's open, and I'm watching it anyway. I can let you guys know as well. I mean, for your time that you're looking for, you should be okay.
Saturday morning,
yeah,
or even an evening. I mean, if we wanted to do the run through the orientation.
Oh yeah, run through would be ideal if we could do that. Maybe, I don't know, Sanjit, if you're in any other days, but certainly any weekday. I'm here 4 days a week now, and I can, I'm pretty flexible. So
could you set that up for us, Leah?
Yeah, no problem.
And sort of aim for a date time frame of pre 25th of September, so that we've got a few days ahead of Kevin Hall's.
Oh yeah, if we could have it a week ahead, and then if there's any glitches, then we still have time to
exactly
sort it out. And I think, Leah, if you do it through the institute, our kind of connection, as you know, with the university is kind of strange, bizarre, and we're never quite sure how we're going to be received, and it often depends on who we talk to and whether we know them or don't.
Exactly.
I think because you're an established part of the UVic and we're this kind of fringe group, it would be best. And I think at some point, John, we need to create a formal link between the institute and us. So we're kind of partnered within UVic. So when we want to book things like this, then we have some kind of official status.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
Are we not partners now?
I don't think we have a formal connection.
We don't have a formal MOU or anything like that, but we certainly have, by all means, we have a handshake agreement on all kinds of things. And I mean, I sit as I was talking to Susan and Margaret, and I'm now designated as a director, an ex officio director.
Yeah.
So
that in itself sort of, to me, sits as,
You mean Margaret Platt?
Platt?
Yeah. And is it Susan Winter?
Susan Service.
Oh, it's Sherry Winter, isn't it?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know Susan.
Yeah, it's all good. All good. She's acting.
Susan's very critical. She does our pension, or used to.
Can I just say that in the past, Lou and I having booked a room, if we weren't sure of the AVTV equipment or how it worked, we've just called AVTV and booked an appointment with someone, and they arrive and they run us through it. And they're very good at doing that.
I think what we're thinking of here, Richard, is perhaps a little different in that, you know, it's something new, and it's a new way of operating our program. And I think having a session in advance of the start of the year, so to speak, let's all get familiar with it, and then, you know, if on the day we can, or whatever, we can phone up. But if Leah could set up this orientation for us, I think that would be ideal.
So for your presentation that Kevin's doing for you, is that something that he's doing on September 25th, and that will be recorded and played on October 2nd? Is that the kind of the idea?
After this meeting here, I'm going to contact Sherry Winter, who has tried to reach me, and we've missed each other.
Yeah.
But Sherry Winter's
I know Sherry, yeah.
So I wanted to have this meeting first so we had a clearer idea of what we wanted to do. And I think Kevin Hall is asking, you know, tell me about Elder Academy. Where do I fit in? Where do you want me to fit in? And so I'm going to have a conversation with him through Sherry Winter as to, you know, what they're going to do and what they expect us to do. I don't expect from Margaret Platt, who is the one that's been talking to Sherry to this point, I don't expect that we're going to have much of an involvement. It's just a question of informing their office, you know, a little bit about Elder Academy.
Right.
So that's what I intend to do after we've signed off from this meeting here.
Well, I think the intent, Leah, is to actually have him, you know, do a live presentation on the 25th.
Right.
Right, and then, you know, with permission, we could record that, but we'd also like to simultaneously Zoom it. I think that's what we want to do, John, right?
Yeah, that's right. It would just, I envisage it as just being, what's been asked of him is if he would like to make our first presentation, and I'm pretty sure I specified, you know, the format that we usually follow, or they have been following, with the proviso that, you know, by September we'll be allowed to have in-person presentations. So I'm hoping that he'll show up in person.
Nice.
And that we'll also have Zoom participation. So his will be the first test of the system.
All right.
But so how much his office is going to set up, I don't know, and I won't know until I've had a discussion with Sherry.
My guess from previous experience, now, of course, it's always different, but my guess from previous experience is that they will want it all to be set up, and then he just needs to show up. But you'll find out, of course, what they want. So is there an Elder Academy session on September 25th so that he would be able to he would be speaking to some people in person?
No, we haven't set it up that way at this point.
Okay.
So this is a Saturday, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And traditionally, all our sessions, by and large, are all Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really a kickoff type of presentation, and I'm hoping to ask him if he'll just sort of kind of welcome you know, introduce the year, and I'll give him some coaching on what we have planned for the year. But I think he's going to actually talk. His main subject matter is going to be on a subject or a topic that he's specifically interested in.
Okay.
We don't know what that is yet.
But
okay, so he'll give, like, it's not just like an introduction of Elder Academy. He's actually going to give a presentation.
Yes.
Fabulous. Oh, yeah. That's so great.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, he wanted to do something for the Elder Academy. He wanted to make a presentation in his subject area. And that's what's being set up, which
Got it.
in a way,
I get it.
it helps profile the Elder Academy and the UVRA.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
They kind of put forward the suggestion, as I understand, John. So it would be a kickoff to the new season of the Elder Academy series and presentations coming up.
That's right. So his opening remarks, his introductory comments will be, you know, I'm the first one to present in this calendar year, and we'll look forward to it, whatever, and all that sort of thing. And then he'll get into his subject.
Very cool. All right. I'm just adding that to my calendar right now. I'd like to be there in person for that one if possible.
Yeah, John, you know, we can talk about this at a program meeting, but it seems to me that, you know, you could introduce him, but in doing that, you could say this is the first in the series, and this is the thing to come, and we can have a printed sheet out of the sessions and the dates to give out, and so on, and then introduce him and let him just stick with his presentation, and maybe, you know, kind of a nice acknowledgement of us. But I wouldn't get him to, you know, be telling us what's coming up with Elder Academy. That I don't think would be part of his role at that time.
No. I mean, the coordinator, in other words, myself, I suppose, would be the one that would do that.
Yeah.
But he's asked for a website page. So I provided him with a website page, which, as you know, has a good deal of historical information as to what we've done and where we've been and who we are.
As long as he can find it.
Okay.
Okay. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just wondered if there was anything else that we needed to talk about. Anybody got any other concerns or points to clarify or anything?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the questions that you had sent. So for what I would do for when you're advertising, letting people know whether they can attend via Zoom or in person, do you charge people if you still charge if people are attending by Zoom, right? Okay.
Yes, we do.
So given that people have to pay, it might be easier then to keep them in one section or another. Would you just give the Zoom link to everybody and then the room information to everybody once they've registered, of course? And then if they show up in person, they show up in person. If they show up and the reason I'm bringing this up is, for instance, for our Lafayette Health Awareness Forum that we're doing in October, it's always full. Always, and it's about 300 and some odd people. So for us, we have two different registration options. We've got the registration option if you're planning on attending in person, and we have the registration option for people who are attending via webinar, because we need to be able to cap the number of people who are attending in person, because we can only have 310. So I don't know if that sort of capacity is going to be so much of an issue for you, or if it's going to be something that you know that you're not likely to fill an 85-person room, assuming by that time that social distancing or physical distancing won't be an issue anymore. Because I would think if you normally have, say, 70 people, the room holds 85, you know, there'll be a few pockets of empty seats for you to not have to worry about. It's something to consider whether or not you want to just do it all as one and then let it chips fall where they may, or if you do want to keep it separate and have people choose. The nice thing about choosing is that if people are attending via Zoom and they're not in town, you can have more people attend. You can sort of send out the registration a little further.
Well, those are good points. And I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be decided today. It's just something to think about.
Right, but those are good points. I think it would be a good thing if we had that as a problem, you know, capacity problem. But I don't anticipate we will, based on the past few years that I've been involved.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just reading through the
So as you say, it may be just that we let the chips fall where they may, at least for the first session, first series, and see how we go. Trial by fire.
Yeah. And you can always ask people, and then if you know you're getting close to capacity, you can sort of make adjustments to the registration after that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So for the closed captioning, I did send Lou the information after, pardon me, the last UVRA meeting. It's through Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center. And
Leah, just can I ask you a question before you go on to that?
Yeah, for sure.
You use the Eventbrite for your registrations?
No, it depends on what we're doing. For masterminds, I used ePly. And if I'm doing a Zoom, like a one-off, I just have people register directly through Zoom.
Now,
and I always have people register and receive a link rather than publish the link. People come in, you get problems if you publish a link. So
yeah,
just
well, we've kind of done that a little bit. But Sanjit has handled that side of things. So, Sanjit, if just say we wanted to keep a separate tally of those that are Zooming in as those who are going to be physically there. Because, John, if we do have a 6 foot whatever, we may have to restrict numbers that are directly attending. Would it be possible to run 2 parallel lists? One of people who are going to be attending by Zoom and the others who intend to attend in person. Using Eventbrite, they'd have 2 different registration numbers for Eventbrite, but it would be the same event, but either attending by Zoom or in person. Would that be possible?
You see, some people may one week be out of town, and they may want to Zoom in, and then the other parts of the session of the series, they may be in town, and so they'd like to attend in person. It's sort of,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You can always ask people their intentions. It just depends on whether or not you want to tell them, okay, you've made your choice, that's it, you're locked in. Or if you want people to know that it's, this option or that option, because for somebody it might be like, oh no, I'm going to attend in person, and then it's raining that day and it seems far easier just to settle in with a cup of coffee and watch from home. So, and then they don't have to pay for parking either, which is another added bonus. So it'll be interesting to see what the response is, actually. Just out of note of interest, when I did the evaluations after the Masterminds lecture series, which is co-hosted by both the Institute and the UVRA, about 60% of the people said that they would prefer to join virtually via webinar rather than come in person. But that's also an evening series. And for some people, the drive at night is a deal breaker. So, but just so you know, like, lots of people seem to really like this idea of still being able to join online rather than having to drive up to UVic. So,
well, maybe on the registration through Eventbrite, we can say, what is your preference?
Yeah.
And not hold them to it necessarily.
Yeah.
That would give us an indication.
You can always ask, because you can add in questions, because I've used Eventbrite. I just don't use it typically because I prefer the ePly layout. But you can always ask the question, and then when you're looking at your registration list, you can have that be a field that you can sort by, just to say, okay, well, 45 people have said out of this 92 that they're planning on attending in person. And then sort of see what you get on the day. And that would be an interesting tally to keep. Just, okay, 45 say they're going to attend in person, but actually only 23 showed up. Just to kind of give you a sense of where the trends are going.
I tend to think that there'll be less people in person and more by Zoom if you give them that option.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Richard.
Well, I've just done a doodle survey with my men's fitness class, and there's basically 40 odd people that are basically registered for that. And I asked them whether if I started it again in person, how many would come and how many are happy to carry on being Zoomed. And it's about 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we can do, like when people will get registration on the Eventbrite, so we can send an so when we will send the invitation, we can ask, please write something behind your name within parentheses, like in person or Zoom. So they can write something behind their name within parentheses, like Zoom or in person. So in that
case, you just have to physically count those, though, rather than if you had it as a separate question that you could sort by. It would take you a little longer to have to see, but yeah, that would work too.
We'll have to, if we do get the go-ahead to have in-person presentations, we'll have to have Betty or somebody on the door. So we need to look into contacting Betty to see if she'd be willing to, greet her to take registration and that sort of thing, like we used to do.
At this time, UVic's plan is for a full reopening for September.
Yeah.
So full lecture halls, full like capacity limits. It's going to be about the middle of July that they're going to be releasing their communicable disease plan. And with that, they'll be gradually withdrawing all of the COVID restrictions that are on right now. So you should be good to go from UVic protocol side. It's just going to make the difference of what are people actually going to feel comfortable with by October. I mean, I know now we don't have to wear masks. I'm not comfortable taking mine off yet. I'm so used to wearing it. I'm just not comfortable. And the thought of sitting shoulder to shoulder with people.
I know.
Ew.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So, yeah.
No, it's a new world. It's a new world. There's one other thing, Leah, that I think Lou would like us to discuss. It's the Survey Monkey.
Yeah. Sanjeet, you should have access to Survey Monkey as
I have experience because I did one survey in Survey Monkey.
Yeah.
So I know how I can set up the Survey Monkey link and Survey Monkey questions. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, it's a really great program. It's very straightforward, and there's so many options for how you can ask a question and have it answered. And Survey Monkey will even analyze it for you. Like it takes all of the work out of it, really. Yeah. So
okay.
So you've got that. I don't,
John. Like, what's the purpose of Survey Monkey? I don't know.
Sorry.
What's the purpose of using Survey Monkey? What's the purpose?
What's the purpose of using it? Are you thinking of doing evaluations, posts? I was guessing that was why Lou was asking, just thinking of doing evaluations after the after each session or at the end of each series. I'm not sure. We used it for masterminds as a post after each presentation as just a
and I think that's what she saw was the results of one of those surveys, and I think she was impressed with it. So I thought I'd, on her behalf, just ask that question. But it sounds like we've already got through Sanjit. We've got that capability taken care of. So I think we're. Anybody else got any thoughts or comments or questions?
Well, I interrupted Leah, I think, when she was talking about the closed captioning.
Oh, yeah. So for the closed captioning, you just have to make sure that you arrange that with Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing well ahead of time. They like to have about 3 weeks notice at bare minimum. For an event the length of this, it would probably cost about $80 per session. And that's for somebody who is joining online to provide the live transcription, so the live closed captions, which is a really great option for some people's speakers are just not good enough. Some people's hearing is just not good enough. If English is your second language, it can be very helpful to be able to read it as well as hear it, because I know, like, I can read French really well, but I can't listen to somebody talk. But if I've got subtitles, I can read it, right? So it can be very, very useful. Whether or not your budget leads to that, that's a different question. But
oh, we got lots of money.
Yeah, you guys got lots of money. You're fine.
Right,
So how do they type it in as the person is speaking then?
They do. We had them for masterminds this year, and she was amazing. We would give her a heads up a few days ahead of time. They like to have about a week ahead of time about the subject matter, and then they research into it to make sure that they've got like some details, if there's any speaking notes. But the first one we did was with Nancy Turner on ethnological botany. So it was basically indigenous plants, people, and places. She even got the spellings of the indigenous name places. Wow. and like she had it down. I was so impressed. It was incredibly well done. And most people, I know I can't type fast enough to be able to capture. And she captured all the nuances as well. So, you know, the little jokes, the little asides, they were all in there. Wow. So it was really, really well done. So again, something that you might want to consider, and then asking in SurveyMonkey, you know, did you use the service? Did you find the service useful? It could be good to know whether or not it's worth it. For us, for masterminds, 100%, about a third of the people said, yes, this was useful. So
you actually used it for masterminds, did you?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the first time we were able to do that. It was good.
Now, when you're doing that, I know when you're watching Netflix sometimes and some of the foreign movies that they have captions, but it's on a white background with white writing, and basically it's impossible to read. So do you have a separate bar for that, which is black background?
You can change how it looks. Okay, now this is a webinar thing only. I would have to check into it for something that is set up as a meeting, because I haven't used closed captioning for meetings. I'm just writing a note to myself. But in the webinar, you could change how the text looked to you. And I'm trying to think, I want to say the text was white on a black background, but you could change the size of it, which was quite nice, because you know, there's not much point to it if it's an 8-point font, right? Like,
yeah, the question is really, do you create your own background? Because, you know, when they do it on Netflix, they're just using the regular things. So if it happens to be very light and white at the bottom of the screen,
yeah,
and the caption comes up, it's virtually impossible to read it, right? I was just wondering whether you put your own background up.
I didn't. I'll have to look into that to be sure. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm curious now that you've brought it up. So I'll look into it to see.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I mean, as long as you're dark at the bottom of the screen, and we probably would be, you know, given our context, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it probably wouldn't be a problem, but I just know that at times.
Yeah.
And also, it's so fast, you can't even read that fast.
Yeah, I get the feeling that it shows up much as our names do, so that there's sort of like that charcoal shadow and then the white text in it. But I'd have to double check to be sure, and I'd like to check to see if that can be, what adjustments can be made, because it's nice to be able to customize if you need to. So I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Lou had asked about using Slido as a way to ask questions. Slido is really more for if the presenter is wanting to ask questions of the audience. It's not for the audience to ask questions of the presenter. So you'll have the chat box, like it sounds like you guys have Q&A taken care of. If you ever wanted to bring Slido in as a way of engaging with the audience, you can, but the only thing is that the people who are joining virtually need to have a separate device outside of whatever they're watching on. Would people have that?
How demographic?
You know, like I know loads of people have, you know, loads of people of all ages now have, you know, a device, but do they have 2 devices so that they could watch watch the meeting on one and use Slido on the other. I'm not super convinced. There's also poll options. So like I set this up ahead of time. It showed it up as an untitled question, but polling one, do you think polls might be useful in using, and then people just, they click on their answer and it goes back. So I think if you ever had a presenter who wanted to ask questions of the audience because they're wanting to engage in a different way, I would set that up as a poll and and you can do those in meetings, and it's a free option. I personally wouldn't bring Slido into it. I think it's a little bit more than you'd probably need to have, although that might be a question you'd want to ask on one of the survey evaluations that you do. Do you have more than one device?
So how do you assess that poll on meetings on Zoom?
So meetings? At the bottom so you set it up ahead
the bottom of the screen.
Oh, it says polling?
Yeah. So you just set it up ahead of time and put the questions in, and then you just put the question up and then just end polling. And I can share the results so you can see the results. So it's the kind of thing where, especially if you're looking for multiple choice, like simply like you click on the option of the answer.
Yeah,
it's kind of a neat option. It just needs to be set up ahead of time so that if your presenter does want to ask any questions of the audience, the nice thing is you get the option of 25 different questions. It is a nice way to keep people engaged in your presentation instead of just like, oh, I'm just going to go make some coffee over here, and oh, I'm just going to clear this up over there, and oh, I need to write a note to myself, and keeps people a little bit more engaged than just kind of talking at them. So it's
Greg Mulligan used it in a couple of his presentations, and Sanjit, I think you helped set it up, didn't you?
But it didn't work because it's ideally because we need to set up like a time before. So before we need to set up the polls, then we can just launch the poll.
Yeah, so right now I don't have an icon that says poll. Like if I wanted as a presenter to do a poll, where would I access that icon?
So as a presenter, you would likely want to have it set up so that you have your questions sent to whoever's hosting, whoever the UVic holder of the webinar is. Send all of that information to them ahead of time, and then it would be your host. And you set people up as co-hosts, but you could load it all up for them and have it ready to go. And I could certainly give you a run through on how to do that.
And it's the same with breakout sessions too, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a reason to have people go into different breakout sessions because you want to be able to have a smaller discussion and then people come back, it's a nice option, and it keeps people a little bit more engaged. But Elder Academy is a very specific type of thing, so you can do whatever it is you want to do. You can create it however you want. So
the trouble with this is that if we're doing the hybrid presentation format, you've got the Zoom people that will be participating in these little, and these polling features or breakout features, but those that are there in person will not be able to. They'll be.
That's right, and that's where Slido comes in. And then if you did have somebody who wanted to do it, that would be where Slido would work.
Yeah.
Where you could have your people who are in person participate that way. Might be worth just so that in case you ever have a presenter who's used to using it and likes it. Might not be a bad idea to poll your audience on one of your first evaluations, just to say, hey, if we were to do this, would you have the technology to be able to do so?
Yeah, I mean, with an audience, and it's a yes, no, you can always say, put your hand up for
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you keep it simple. Yep.
I mean, if you wanted to just get a general feeling of the audience and the feedback, then you've got your Zoom and you've got your audience. So, I mean, it's manageable in a way, but we don't want to be over elaborate.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
My stress level is already pretty high. Just making sure the speaker shows up, and the room isn't locked.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that's great. We've been going an hour.
Okay, good.
We'll have a programming committee meeting at the beginning of September. And I think what we can do is finalize things out of this discussion here at the programming committee. And then, Leah, you're going to, in September, let us know when we might have an orientation.
Exactly. So I should be able to book something. They're just finishing doing their all of the class scheduling and whatnot. And once that's done and they've confirmed that UVic is definitely going to be opening for September, they'll be opening it up for others. So as soon as I can book, I will book, letting you guys know ahead of time sort of, what that would look like. Is there a day of the week that is better for all of you who want to attend? Is there a day that might be better than others so I can lean towards that?
No, I'm open.
Okay.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday mornings don't work well for me, and Tuesday mornings actually in September. So
okay, so
afternoons would work better.
Okay.
And I think if we could book, John, one of those 3 rooms in the Dave Turpin building are pretty much the same, aren't they? So one of those 3 rooms, if we know how to operate one, we probably will know how to operate the other.
Similarly equipped, as I recall.
Yeah.
But there's also the Zoom licensing issues to consider. I know I don't have any UVic accreditation.
Mm-hmm.
So David, you do.
Yeah, I do, and Sanjit does, and Sanjit's been setting up the Zoom.
Sanjit, yeah, okay.
So I think we're good for that, as long as you hold up their membership with Zoom. I think
and as I understand it, that is the plan moving forward, is that they're going to keep, they dropped another video conferencing option there that we used to have at UVic, Blue Jeans, but they've just dropped that now in favor of Zoom because Zoom is so much better. So
will you, Leah, will you contact Sanjit and Lou, or just to keep them informed with what you find out?
For sure. Yeah, and I can CC any of you guys that want to.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Just keep in. Yeah, whatever I discover, I will keep you in the loop.
And you'll do that with a recording of this session, or?
Yeah, so the recording, Sanjit, I'll just, once it's downloaded, I'll just put it on a stick and pass it over to you, and you can download it and just give me the stick back whenever you've got a chance.
Very good.
And that way Lou can watch it at her leisure, and that would be great. Hi, Lou. So.
Anybody got any other questions or discussion points?
Yeah, I mean, just when we do the orientation, it'd be really good to have at least 3 of us there, and maybe 4, so that, there's some flexibility. If one of us can't be there on a Saturday morning, we know that there's other people, which, Richard's been really good at doing that too. So are you interested in helping out with that, Richard?
Yes, yeah. Because several times, the only trouble with that David Turpin building is that they don't necessarily open those rooms. And I've had to contact campus security to come and open the rooms, but I'll take care of that. It's all right.
Well, also opening the building.
Yeah.
That's right. And getting a doorstop.
Yes.
You remember, Richard, getting the doorstop?
Yes, yeah.
Well, if they open the building, we don't need the doorstop. It's just they didn't unlock the door.
Look, guys, thanks very much for giving up your Friday afternoon. It's great.
Thanks, Leah.
Very welcome. It's good to chat with you. And if you have any other questions that pop up for me, just shoot me an email. You know where to find me.
We've got your email. We've got it.
Good stuff.
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Be
Thanks
careful what you
all.
ask for. Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.